again this morning. I appreciate you being here. I know there are many things vying for your time, for your consideration, and for your support. That you choose to spend some of your time on Sundays here is a real compliment to this church. It's a real compliment to whomever is in the pulpit that particular day. And most importantly, I think it's a compliment to everyone else who is here, particularly on a Sunday like today, one that follows something as horrific as what we witnessed this past Friday in a little town in Connecticut, where 26 people were murdered, 20 of whom were young children, 6 and 7 years old. It's times like these when it's good to be together, to check in on one another to see if we're doing okay, to reassure ourselves that there still is good in the world, even when something so utterly monstrous occurs. I hope this place, this physical building, is somewhat a familiar comfort to you, not just today, but every Sunday. I hope the reflection, the sermon, is helpful to you in some way, that it feeds you to some extent most Sundays. But as far as I'm concerned, it's not the building or the reflection that is most important. It is the other human beings who are here on Sundays that make this place special and important, especially in the light of these recent events. I believe it's important to get in the habit of being here on Sundays, not for me, not for whomever is in the pulpit, but for the greater comfort that comes from meaningful community. It turns the entirety of it upside down, doesn't it? To attend Sunday services at Westside, not so much for what I need, but to support the congregation, to support the ideal of Unitarian Universalism and those who are UUs by our very presence. We're all on a journey of some sort, a journey that has its hills and valleys, a journey wherein we make good decisions and those we wish we could have back. But I think all of us here, if there is any humility in us at all, understand the journey is complicated. That those of us who believe we have all the answers are very often mistaken. And that to be in a community which truly understands that life can be both fulfilling and perplexing, that the search for truth is not a line that goes ever upward and in an undeviating line. Well, that, my friends, is truly a gift. It can become a habit, a very positive habit, to be here on most Sundays, and many of you practice this habit religiously. And I'm very grateful for that. But perhaps even more so today. There are many other habits that aren't so positive. A woman walked up to this little old man in a rocking chair on his front porch, and she said, "I couldn't help noticing how happy you look. What's your top secret," she asked, "for a long and happy life?" "Well, I smoke 3 packs of cigarettes a day," he said. "I also drink a case of whiskey every week. I eat oily foods, and I never exercise," he said. "That is amazing," the woman said. "How old are you?" 26, he said. So some habits are more helpful, some habits are less helpful than others. But I mentioned to you last week, to those of you who attended, that I would once again use the Apostle Paul in the New Testament this week, didn't I? I warned you, right? Last week's reading of Paul's idea on love may be my favorite reading in the Bible, but this one comes a close second. Now, like I said last week, the Bible nor the Apostle Paul are typically the first place I run for inspiration. But in the 7th chapter of the book of Romans, Paul says this. He says, I do not understand my own actions, for I do not do what I want, but I do the very thing I hate. Now, if I do what I do not want, I agree that the law is good. But in fact, it is no longer I that do it, but sin that dwells within me. For I know that nothing good dwells within me, that is my flesh. I can will what is right, but I cannot do it. For I do not do the good I want, but the evil I do not want is what I do. Now if I do what I do not want, it is no longer I that do it, but sin that dwells within me. Oh, wretched man that I am. There are books in the Bible attributed to Paul which unlikely were written by the apostle. But scholars are fairly certain Romans is authentic. And there are many interpretations of what Paul may mean by his words in this passage. To me, the words are so utterly human, so naked, so unpretentious, that it is difficult for me to believe that this is the same guy who wrote some of the other stuff in the Bible. However, I have little need for hermeneutical exposition here. I have little need for interpretation. I'm willing to take Paul at face value and believe he is stating something many of us have felt. I know I have. That feeling of frustration with myself, that desire to do better, that wish that I could consistently act like the person I want to be, and then falling short yet again. In this writing of Paul, he understood how imperfect he was. You know how we might say that someone acts like their stuff don't stink? Well, on the day that Paul wrote these words in Romans, he understood his stuff stunk. You know who seems to understand the habits of human beings better than most others? I think it's advertisers. Advertisers are doing their best to take what you know, to take who you are, and manipulate that in a way that then attempts to tell you who you want to be. It is, I think, fiendishly, devilishly clandestine that these high-powered, moneyed organizations spend so many dollars on research that they can figure out how to create needs when there aren't really any there. How they can make us want things that in some form we may already have. That they are simply able to make us do what we may not want to do and buy their product. Even you use fall victim to it. At least I do. I see the new Prius, and I begin to dislike the one I have that's almost paid for. The newest iPhone comes out, and some of us begin to salivate in a way that most others would believe to be unhealthy. We all of us have our weaknesses. These weaknesses can be readily apparent to others, but the weaknesses may also only be evident to ourselves and to our inner lives. And these can be the most destructive of all, creating self-doubt and even self-hate, where we can sound much like the Apostle Paul. But as much as I seemingly dislike the advertisers who invite us to behave in ways that are not in alignment with our values or our very own self-interest, I also admire their ability to figure human behavior out in a way that, although motivated by the almighty dollar, offers us great insight into why we do what we do. Why there are times when we say, oops, I've done it again. Now, strangely, the thing that got me thinking about all of this was a book I was reading which detailed the invention of a product that in some ways we didn't even know we needed. It's a product that I have in my own home, and since reading about its invention, I've started using it more than I did before. You see, what advertisers know is that the way we develop habits is by a process that goes like this. There's some sort of cue that sets us up into a routine that then offers some sort of reward. So for a rat being experimented upon, the cue could be an artificial sound, perhaps a click of some sort, which tells the rat to then move through a maze, the routine, and is then given a reward at the end, a piece of sweet chocolate. So it is the cue, the routine, the reward. This process can work on just about anything. So there are folks we all know who have been shown by cue and routine that the act of blustery bullying gets them the satisfaction, the reward that comes from seeing others bend to their desires. There are those who have a crappy day at work, the cue, that sends them into a routine of purchasing an intoxicant that gives them the reward of numbing the feelings that come from a bad day or a good day, or even a day which elicited little in the way of feelings at work. Cue, routine, reward. So researchers come up with this new product. It was a product that didn't merely just cover up odors, it actually removed odors, it eliminated odors. But they couldn't get people to purchase this new revolutionary product. So they began to do some additional market research. They began to give the product away for free. People would use the spray bottle for a couple of times, and then it would find its way under the sink only to be forgotten. The researchers began to watch film of mostly women cleaning a bedroom. When they were done, there was a smile on the woman's lips that seemed to say, "This is a job well done." The advertisers went into homes where the products were once used, and one of the homes had a smell that overwhelmed the researchers. It was the home of a woman with approximately 14 cats. And they asked her, "What do you do about the cat smell?" And she said, "What cat smell?" Like so many of us, she didn't realize her own stuff stunk. The advertisers then knew what they needed to do. There was the cue that came from the time to clean the house, but the routine had to be changed in order to get the same reward, the feeling that this was a job well done. So when you see a commercial for this product that does not just cover up odors, but actually eliminates them, you will see the person cleaning, usually a woman, who does not get that satisfied look on her face of a job well done until she has refreshened the bedroom or the bathroom or the toy box with a few little spritzes of Febreze. Researchers understood the cue. They disrupted the routine in order to get the reward. And just last year, sales of Febreze for the first time crossed the $1 billion mark. Now there's a couple of things I believe this has the potential to tell us. The first thing is that when we begin to actually understand the process of cue, routine, and reward, we can actually begin to choose the habits in which we will participate. We can actually change our routine or alter our reward no matter the cue if we understand the process. This process the advertisers use to manipulate us into purchasing those things that may be beneficial in life, but more importantly, they can get us to buy those things that add very little value to what we truly believe to be important. But in addition to that lesson, what we may choose to take from this story of the success of what is now Febreze is that most of us do not understand that our own stuff stings. We get pretty good at identifying who could use a good stiff spray of Febreze, but we are rarely able to see that spray nozzle should be just as often pointed right back at ourselves. Since my stuff doesn't stink, I'll spend time letting you know how yours does. Your stuff doesn't stink, so it is incumbent that you let me know how mine does. We all, I think, do this. And for the most part, we are blind to it. Now, we may know intellectually that our stuff stinks, but our business becomes letting others know the odor emanating from them is so foul that we're barely able to stand it. Every Tuesday night here at Westside, there's a group of people who come together for support, knowing that in some particular way, they want to do something about their imperfections. They know either through self-revelation or through the concern of others that something is stinking up their lives. Life is not working in a way where their true values shine through. To understand the need to make personal change is courageous, in my opinion. And the people who attend these self-management and recovery training meetings, these SMART meetings, may be the most courageous people I know. They realize they don't have all the answers. They need support. They need help from others who also struggle with their ways of going about life. To be with these folks may very well be the most rewarding thing I do out of a wide variety of rewarding things I do at and with Westside. When I've not been here to help because I'm elsewhere or traveling or perhaps sick, Carla Hardy has stepped in a great deal. Bruce Finley has also offered assistance. For those of you who know Paul McGinnis, Paul has been there from the very beginning in 2008 when this started, helping me and helping the group. But what you may not know is that Paul and his spouse, Linda, may very well be moving to Dallas soon. So I just want to publicly thank Paul for helping me so much and so long with our SMART group here at Westside. There are some things that to me make little sense in life. Things like this shooting in Connecticut. Things like this shake my faith in humanity. We're complicated animals. And during the course of our lives, we're constantly presented with choices. What are my values? Who do I want to be? How do my actions, my behaviors reinforce the picture in my head of who I am in the world? But I believe we have the capability to use Thoreau's words to live deliberately. I believe we have the ability to create change in our lives. It's actually quite simple to do, but that doesn't mean it's easy. We'll make mistakes. We'll feel the way the Apostle Paul must have felt when he wrote those words in Romans. There will be times when it is very important not to give up and to try yet again. It's important, I think, to understand how our olfactory abilities are quite attuned to the smells of others and what they should do to change. But it's more difficult to remember that it's quite possible we could all use a metaphorical spritz of Febreze. So as 2012 begins to wind down, and with a new year on the horizon, I encourage you to think about one thing you might contemplate changing. And then make it a habit to come here on Sundays, to be with others who, as best as they can, search for that which is true and beautiful and meaningful, even when the world seems so ugly and cruel and mean. As we rise in body or spirit and join together in singing our closing hymn, number 244,